Good evening, everyone. I will call the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts to order. We just have the one report today to work with, and we do have a couple members, given that our membership has members that are deputy speakers in the chamber, and the chamber is still going this evening. They will be transitioning in and out of here this meeting partway through, so I thank them for their flexibility in that as well. First up, we have, and the only thing on the agenda at this point is the consideration of the Office of the Auditor General Report, Financial Statement Audited Coverage Plan for the financial statement fiscal years ending 2025, 2026, and 2027. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Auditor General.
Thank you so much, Chair. And perhaps before I make a couple of introductory comments, I should introduce my friends that are here with me tonight. On my right is Molly Pierce. Molly is the lead principal responsible for the summary financial statement audit, the public accounts of the province. And on my left is Lisa Moore. Lisa is also a principal with our financial audit team and does a whole lot of financial audits and is involved in the summary financial statement audit as well. So these are the two lead people really from the office. So I want to thank both of them for coming. I'll begin quickly by acknowledging with respect that at the Office of the Auditor General, we conduct our work on Coast Salish territories. I'd like to take a personal moment to express my gratitude to Indigenous people here for sharing these lands now known as Victoria with me to enjoy life. As a visitor on these traditional Coast Salish territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, I try to reflect daily and give thanks for the land and the sea and the skies that we are presented with. This is particularly important for me as a status Indian member myself of the Mayapakek First Nation, the son of an Indigenous mother and grandmother. They taught me well to say thank you, so I say thanks. Before I begin, one other quick comment before I turn to the financial statement audit coverage plan. I also want to be mindful and pay respect to the fact that November has been proclaimed as Indigenous Disability Awareness Month in British Columbia. And I know well, unfortunately, with my own family who has not been spared from the many diseases that are common with Indigenous people. This is a reality of life for many of us. Now to our topic, the financial statement audit coverage plan. And I do have my accounting hat on tonight as well. So we are here, we have provided you already with our financial statement audit coverage plan for fiscal years ending March 25, 26, and 27. The value here for you is to let you know what type of coverage is happening with which entity across the government reporting entity, i.e. the BC government. The plan ensures we have the right depth and breadth of knowledge about government so we can focus on risk areas while fulfilling our role as the independent auditor of the province. Making the plan public is important for transparency and demonstrating our accountability to the Legislature and to the people of BC. This plan identifies all 138 entities that are consolidated in the province's summary financial statements. The financial statements for all of these entities are audited either by our office or a private sector audit firm. The plan identifies which organizations our office will directly audit and why. It also presents how this coverage will change each year to support our ability to audit the consolidated summary financial statements. This plan is presented to you for approval and consideration as required by Section 10 of the Auditor General Act. I would like to acknowledge the effort of many staff who aren't with us here tonight, but who contributed to putting this plan together. But of course, a big special thanks to our lead summary financial statement audit principal, Molly Pierce, for her leadership in getting us here tonight. Thank you, Molly. And I also want to say thank you to Lisa as a lead principal in our audit practice who is filling in for Stuart Newton, the Assistant Auditor General. Thank you, Lisa, for filling in at the last moment. And before I turn it over to Molly, I will tell you between Lisa and Molly, you are looking at over 50 years of audit. I'm not going to tell you how to split them, but 50 years of audit, 50 years with the office. On that, Molly, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I am pleased to be here in November this year, having taken committee feedback into consideration to present earlier than the March 2021 and February 2022 presentations. Here we are, 3 to 4 months earlier, so thank you for the feedback. We are here seeking 3 approvals, which are noted in the plan at a glance. These are approval of our financial statement audit coverage plan for fiscal years ending March 31, 2025, 2026, 2027. Approval to continue as appointed auditor for 1 government entity and 1 subsidiary where the term is greater than 5 years. And approval to continue to be the appointed auditor to the Provincial Employees Community Services Fund, which is outside of the government reporting entity. The annual audit of the summary financial statements is the largest audit performed in British Columbia. The audit provides assurance on whether the financial statements present fairly the financial position and operating results of the province. The audit of the government reporting entity, including central government and the 138 entities consolidated into the summary financial statements, is accomplished through the combined work of our office and private sector auditors. The Auditor General audits central government, which includes, among other things, all government ministries. This plan meets professional requirements for audit coverage under Canadian Generally Accepted Auditing Standards and will allow the Auditor General to provide the independent auditor's report on government summary financial statements. These standards require us to be involved in the audit of all significant entities included in the summary financial statements. These are the larger entities where errors could have a greater impact on consolidated financial results. We define our audit involvement with the 138 government entities that are consolidated into the summary financial statements as being either direct, oversight, or limited. Direct is where our office performs the audit with our own staff or a contracted firm. In 2025, this will be 10 organizations. Oversight is where there is a private sector auditor and we conduct oversight procedures. In 2025, this will be 26 organizations. And limited is where there is no field work done by our office. We do, however, communicate with the auditor and may direct audit work as required. In 2025, this is 102 organizations. In deciding our level of involvement, we look at risk factors including complexity, level of public interest, financial size, and likelihood of issues that would materially affect the summary financial statements. We look at these risks at both the organization level and the sector level, for example, the health sector. We also look at the same time at the capacity of our office. We also look at new organizations when there are new entities because we are entitled under our Act to be the auditor of new entities for the first 3 years of their existence. We assess risk and capacity here as well. There are no new entities in this plan. In the plan, we have to balance the benefits achieved through auditor rotation with professional standards that require us to maintain appropriate knowledge and experience in order to fulfill our mandate. Where we have been auditor for more than 7 years, including ministry audits, we employ senior staff rotation and other safeguards as required by auditing standards to ensure that our objectivity is maintained. Under the Auditor General Act, we are to request Public Accounts Committee approval of audit appointments that exceed 5 years. In the preparation of this plan, we reviewed each appointment exceeding 5 years and considered if rotation to a private sector audit firm would be necessary. As presented on page 16 of this year's plan, we are requesting approval to continue as the auditor of 1 entity and 1 subsidiary. These are the British Columbia Transportation Financing Authority, because it holds a significant portion of the province's capital assets, and the Transportation Investment Corporation, as it is a subsidiary of British Columbia Transportation Financing Authority. Turning now to the detailed plan, on page 13 of the report is a summary table of our planned audit coverage for the existing 138 entities by fiscal year and level of involvement for the next 3 years for financial statement fiscal years ending in 2025 through 2027. This table is a roll-up of the detailed plan as shown in Appendix A of the report, although it does not include the trust funds and other entities that show on page 24. The plan also includes changes to our coverage for certain entities since the last coverage plan was prepared. Some changes are discussed on page 10 of the plan, and all changes are outlined in Appendix B. Of note are that we have changed from being the direct auditor using a contractor for the British Columbia Liquor Distribution Branch. We are comfortable at this time with performing oversight procedures at the branch and anticipate this level of coverage to be indefinite. We have also reevaluated our involvement with British Columbia Housing Management Commission and the Provincial Rental Housing Corporation. We have moved our level of involvement from oversight to direct auditor for the 2026 fiscal year. The change to direct auditor is due to our current risk assessment and the significance of both organizations. This will be our first year as direct auditor for those two organizations. Looking at trends by organization type, for school districts, in the past, we have audited up to 5 of the 60 school districts at any one time for 5 years each. At the moment, our plan is to move to auditing 3 school districts directly and performing oversight procedures in another 2 to 3 school districts. This is in addition to the 2 largest school districts, which are School District 36, Surrey, and School District 39, Vancouver. For the post-secondary sector, in the 2020 fiscal year, we took on the audit of the University of British Columbia, which is one of our larger audits. Our last year as auditor of UBC is this fiscal year. We will then move to be direct auditor of Simon Fraser University in fiscal 2025. We plan to have an oversight role in 5 entities within the sector spread across universities, colleges, or institutes for each year of the plan. For health authorities and hospital societies, we will be the direct auditor of the Provincial Health Services Authority for the duration of the plan. We plan to have an oversight role in 5 health authorities and 1 hospital society each year of the plan. For Crown corporations, we plan to direct audit 4 Crown corporations in 2025 and 6 in 2026 and 2027. Our plan is to have an oversight role in 7 to 11 Crown corporations across various sectors during the 3-year plan. For organizations outside of the government reporting entity, as noted on page 17 of the report, we plan to continue with 1 engagement outside of the government reporting entity, the Provincial Employees Community Services Fund. Also of note is Appendix C, starting on page 26, which shows that there are over 100 subsidiaries, partnerships, and joint ventures that are consolidated into government entities in the plan. We have noted where these additional entities may be audited by our office versus a private sector audit firm. And in some cases, the subsidiaries are not audited. And that concludes an overview of the plan, and I will now turn it back to Michael.
Thank you, Molly. So just a reminder, I guess, as to what we're here for consideration and looking for is if you go to the plan at a glance on the page 4, the 3 requests are at the bottom of that. So rather than me going through that again, Molly went through it, and rather than me naming it off again, it's right on the bottom of that page. So maybe, Chair, I will pause there and happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Susie?
Just curious, and I should probably know the answer to this, but I don't. I don't see FNHA in there, First Nations Health Authority. So are they being looked at by another body entirely, or how's that working?
They're, excuse me, not part of the government reporting entity.
They are not?
No.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Spencer?
I noticed you mentioned 7 to 11 Crown corporations would be. Is it based on how the reporting goes? If one takes longer, then you'll only get to 7, or is it just kind of a...
It was 7 to 11 over the 3 years, just when we're bringing, some organizations we have oversight all the time because of their significance. Some organizations will just bring on for 2 years and do oversight. They would be smaller or mid-sized organizations from different regions or sectors, just to allow us to have that breadth and depth of knowledge across the province.
And And just to add a clarification there, it's not 7 to 11 is more like a factual comment.
Oh, I see.
It's planned and structured. It's not going to be, well, maybe it'll be
Sorry,
7, maybe.
I
no,
thought it was
our-
structured, and then I heard 7 to 11. I went,
Yeah.
oh, well, is it an optional thing?
Yeah, no, that's
sorry.
on us, not you. It's the 7 to 11 is a real structured and formal, yeah.
I was going to ask why you're not also auditing Circle K, but any other questions from the committee? I have one. I let Jackie know I would ask. She's obviously in the chair right now, as I mentioned at the beginning. Obviously, her and I met with your office in the summer. We tried having the committee here agree to ask for an audit of the rebuild of Lytton. There was some discussion in the chamber around that as well, and then we've since received a subsequent letter from your office saying that you are at least trying to figure out if it's doable or a scope or a scale. We were half hoping based on that letter that we would see it in the work plan, and we don't see it even referenced at all. So what would be the status of that?
Sure. So maybe just to clarify, this is our financial audit, our test audits, the annual ones that we do each year. That the scope of the work of what you're talking about is with our performance audit portfolio. So for those, we don't go with an approval. It's only on the financial audits that we need to get approved.
Okay, and there's no update on that?
No, nothing beyond what we have in the letter in terms of the work that we're doing.
Okay. Rona Ray.
Thanks for that overview of it all. My question is around the risk assessments. In the BC Transportation Financing Authority, on page 16, you make reference to the qualified audit since 2011. And I was wondering if you could sort of give some insights about what's going on with this particular authority that is questionable, because sometimes qualifications aren't super scary, except they just don't.
So the qualification in the BC Transportation Financing Authority is the same lines of qualification that is on the summary financial statements with respect to how they account for government transfers and restricted contributions. So there's a difference with what the public sector accounting standards require the recognition of those funds. So it's the same qualification as one of the ones that is in the summary financial statements.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, is that why, if I may, is that why they are getting the direct extension to have your direct involvement in audit?
The audit of the BC Transportation Financing Authority, it's also very intertwined with the Ministry of Transportation audit. So to have a private sector audit firm audit that, it would be a little bit problematic. It wouldn't be as efficient. So there's definitely an efficiency piece there because of that close relationship between the Crown and the Ministry.
Jennifer, did you? I don't know. Wasn't sure. You see hands moving sometimes. Spencer.
Sorry, thank you. I know one of the reasons why we shift auditors around and so on, I was told at one point, was for fear that somebody might become too familiar with an organization, that kind of thing. Has that standard changed at all in the auditing world? Because I know there was, discussion, I think it was every 3 years, every 4 years. Some said it should happen more frequently that you switch. Some say that you can stick with the same auditor for longer. I know it impacts the plan based on how we move through these things. I'm just curious how that standard has changed.
So the standards is 7 years. Under our act, it's 5 years, which is why we ask for that special permission. But how we address it if we are, the ministry audits we do are, of course, longer than 5 years, is through that senior staff rotation. So that myself, say, would not be doing the same ministry for 10 years.
Okay,
I'd be
that helps. I
rotated.
just wasn't sure if it had
Yes.
changed, because that's what I remembered. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Michael.
Maybe I could just add to that as well, just to give you a little more comfort. Yeah, three of us up here are CPAs. Well, one of us is an FCPA, but three of us are essentially CPAs, and we get not audited, but we get reviewed by the CPA BC, and just like an accounting firm does, an audit firm does, because we're signing opinions. I hold a public accounting license. I'm signing. We go through the same process as people, the same joy as people in firms do.
Okay, any other questions? No? Clerk Jennifer, did you want to do an overview of the motions? I turn that off on you.
Thank you, Chair. So as the Auditor General and his team explained, the committee is required by statute to approve the financial statement audit coverage plan. In terms of approvals, on page 18 of the plan, the 3 approvals are there that have been requested. Generally, this is rolled into one motion for the committee to consider, and then by practice, there is a second motion, which the committee may wish to consider. It simply clarifies that should any changes to the plan be required, that the Office of the Auditor General would return to the committee with those updates. So if the committee is prepared to consider those motions, I can certainly distribute them, Chair.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? If not, we'll distribute them. Okay. Okay, so Susie will make the first motion, and then I hear Renee will make the second. So if you would like to read it in the record, that would be great.
Okay, so I move that the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts, pursuant to Sections 10 and 14 of the Auditor General Act, endorse the 3 recommendations listed on page 18 of the Financial Statement Audit Coverage Plan for Financial Statement Fiscal Years ending in 2025, 2026, and 2027 as presented on November 29th, 2023.
Okay, and is there a seconder? Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Renee, do you want to do the second?
I move that should amendments to the financial statement audit coverage plan for the financial statement fiscal years ending in 2025, 2026, and 2027 be required, the Office of the Auditor General will return to the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts with any such amendments.
Is there a seconder? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And just 1 second here. So that concludes the official business with the Auditor General. We do have another notice, a motion, I should say, that Jennifer Rice brought forward. You're more than welcome to stay and listen, but obviously it's not a participatory portion of the evening for the Auditor General with that discussion. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer if you'd want to make and speak to your motion.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to provide a little bit of a brief rationale for the motion, and then hopefully we all agree to discuss it, or I can just move it and then discuss after. I don't know if there's a preference?
I'm fine with whichever you'd like.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. So the reason for this motion is that, of course, we respect and need the work of the Auditor General, and we need to review all these reports. But thinking back on, I think it's the November 30th meeting, where the AG had presented, I don't know how many of those reports that were either deemed complete or incomplete, were quite late, and that we understand that he's expressed that going forward that we would receive these reports in a more timely manner. So in discussion with some of the committee members on this side, we don't know how, going forward with our crazy agenda, how we would include those reports from a few years back, along with the work that's going forward that we have to do in the coming year with the committee. And so I'm essentially moving that we start with a clean slate in the basically going forward, as opposed to having to go forward along with going back for these past due reports. I'm not sure if I'm providing my rationale properly, but perhaps I'll move the motion that the order of the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts of November 6, 2023, with respect to requesting audited organizations appear before the committee to provide an update on the status of implementing audit report recommendations, be discharged in recognition of the fact that the committee made its decision based on information dated November 30th, 2022, as contained in the Office of the Auditor General's annual follow-up report. The report was the status of the performance audit recommendations from 2019 to 2021.
Okay, well, I'll kick off with a couple comments. I must admit I was taken aback when I saw this come through by email earlier this evening. What we approved, and the motion was that the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts requests the audited organizations appear before the committee to provide an update of the status of implementing recommendations in the following reports of the Auditor General of British Columbia at the earliest opportunity: the oversight of contracted services for children and youth in care, the protection of drinking water, management of forest service roads, management of the conservation lands program, oversight of dam safety in BC, ensuring long-distance ground transportation in northern BC, the BC Oil and Gas Commission's management of non-operating oil and gas sites, and access to emergency health services. Those are what we had agreed upon, and that was based, the reports that were presented by the Auditor General were presented as actually what this whole committee is structured to do, to receive the update from the Auditor General, to decide if we want to compel any or all ministries or entities to come back here and provide updates of what they're doing, not presuppose what they're doing, but to provide the update to us of what they're actually doing as a check and balance, both with government agencies and ministries and the work the Auditor General does. This is the only committee that's actually chaired by the opposition, even though we're in still the minority seats, and that's for a reason. It's because we're meant to be the oversight of all these entities. Respectfully, your motion essentially says we don't want to look at what's going on in MCFD, because on November 6th, we did, and now we don't. At a time where there's critical issues going on in that agency, and to not be willing to want to see it, and actually have that conversation with them, I find shocking. This is the work this committee does. In fact, we have streamlined things so we're not going as far back, to your point, to worry about reports from 2013 and recommendations from 2013. But these are all relevant current reports with an update from the Auditor General of actually, although the audit may have been done in 2019 or 2020, things that still recently still have not been tackled by these agencies. which is the whole purpose of compelling them to come back to this committee. And it fits into our normal workflow of a committee. This is a busy committee at times. We had 2 days scheduled in January to do this work. They were going to be in-person meetings down in Victoria. They were in the calendar. I believe it was January 30th and 31st. The organizations have all been doing the work to get ready. The search for dates had gone out to all of our assistants. So I'm assuming the government side had had those dates floated by them as well. And here we are a week later. And frankly, if I'm being completely blunt, with all of everything else we've seen unfold over the last week in this building, this feels not like a decree or something advanced by the committee. This feels like the Premier's office. We have the whip from the government side on this committee. I've reread through the blues from the committee. The member making this motion was speaking strongly, supportively, 2.5 weeks ago about bringing these groups back. 2.5 weeks later, we have a motion to essentially say this committee no longer needs to have any oversight over these groups. We'll simply receive reports from the Auditor General and call it a day. The whole purpose of this... I'm not misinterpreting, because the motion makes it very clear. We had 8 agencies that we were going to bring back out of 18, so it wasn't even the full roster. We've scheduled time. These were critical things. Well, you might want to check your calendar and talk to your assistants.
Sorry, if I may speak after you speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chair, and then others may want to.
Absolutely. The reality is, that's what public accounts exists for, is to do this exact work that this motion now says we will not do as a committee. And that, I think, in my opinion, is fundamentally wrong. And if the work schedule for any member from any political stripe is deemed to be too much within their calendar, then it's incumbent of that caucus to find a member who can make the meetings work. But we don't stop doing the work of the public, and that's exactly what this motion does. So there's no way I'm going to be supporting this motion, and it does very much feel, in my opinion, that this is coming directly from the Premier's office to basically not have some very serious conversations with some agencies that are responsible for some very serious things going on in our society. Jennifer.
So no one disagrees that this is the work of the committee. This is the work that we do want to do. This is, there's a lot of things that you've just said, Peter, that none of us here are in disagreement with. However, we did not determine a time. The dates, the 30th and 31st, were floated around. They were never confirmed. They were never determined. But they were sent to us as possibilities. That's why no one has that in their calendar. Maybe you entered that prematurely. I think the point that I'm trying to make is that if, using your example of MCFD specifically, they are reporting, the Auditor General is receiving updates from all of these organizations that we did agree to on that 2 meetings ago, is receiving updated reports in March or April? March, in March, and we will, what we're proposing is to review them at the end of January, if we take those dates into consideration, or if we do review those reports during the legislative session, that won't be until the second half of February, looking at the legislative calendar, and therefore, that is a lot of duplication of work for the ministries. And so I would rather get the update from the Auditor General in March, and then bring entities back if they have these major incompletes. It's not about not wanting entities to be held accountable or to report to us. It's just the timing doesn't really make sense, and it is not a good use of people's time. It's, we have a whole bunch of committees in operation right now, and it has been impossible to actually, or nearly impossible for the clerks to coordinate all the committees that we have going on currently, let alone finding 8 hours, whether that's 2 half days or whatnot, alongside all the work the future work that we still have to do in this community. This is extra work that is, in my view, a duplication of work for the ministries when we're going to get the updated reports a month later from the Auditor General.
Susie and then Renee.
Sometimes I don't think as fast as I'd like to. And when we were presented with the information on November 6th, I probably should have asked not to vote on it that night, because I did not get a chance to go through and process it effectively. And one of the things that I noted was a lot of the information was actually very old. Like, it had not been updated. It was not current. So there was a very good chance, I don't know, that the various places had progressed further than was outlined in that report. And we were assured that they would be then updating their reports and bringing them in again as they're expected to the Auditor General. And my perception of process is that the Auditor General then brings that back to us for oversight to say, okay, these are the ones that are outstanding, we need to look at them, ask the questions, and it gives us a robust platform to ask those questions from. But I didn't pick that up last time, and I apologize for that. Because I, as I say, I sometimes don't process as fast as I'd like to. But when I got a chance to look at it, I brought it forward to our deputy chair, and asked if we could possibly reassess this, because the information was old, and for all I know, those entities would have would have gotten quite a bit further, and we'd be asking them to do additional work to get information to us for us to consider it by January, which I thought was pretty hard on the ministries, for them to be giving that duplicate work to the Attorney General for later in the year. That's where I came from. So just my 2 bits worth.
Renee?
Thanks, Chair. I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and I'm feeling disappointed. But it's more than just disappointment. I frankly feel alarmed. Talking about these reports as being quite late, I think, is an absolute backwards argument. We were looking at reports that were 3 and 4 years in the making that were failing, absolutely failing. And this is about the quickest and the most efficient way of updating this committee, whose role it is to hold this place and space and all of the work that gets done to account. And if you don't want to do the work, then, we sign up for these committees. You don't have to be on it. But this is the work of this committee. And we've seen this motion that actually throws out the transparency, the accountability. It doesn't follow through with the audit recommendations. So this isn't just a step back. This is a slap in the face of the idea of responsibility and transparency. The last motion was actually, I was proud of that. We crafted that across party lines. We actually negotiated that. That's democracy. That's transparency. That's accountability. This feels very partisan right now. This feels like we're being strong-armed. This is about making sure that our citizens are served. We're the last stop. They can do the most amazing job. They can give every recommendation. But if we don't hold those entities to account for those recommendations,
Let's hold them all
it is...
a month after he's reviewed them.
I gave you your twice. I gave you 2 moments.
I'm sorry. I apologize, Renee.
That's okay. I think this is turning a blind eye to potentially serious mismanagement. And I honestly think that it's pretty much saying, hey, we're okay with mediocre, it doesn't really matter, we'll just wait, we're gonna punt this down the field a little bit further. So if we are not serious about following up on audit recommendations, we are willfully allowing for even, let's say, 2 or 3 more months. Let's say it's 2 or 3 more months. We, right here, are willfully allowing inefficiencies, possible corruption, abuse, incompetence, or failure. Failure. And what were we talking about? The previous motion, forgive me, I don't have it all down. I just made some notes. Healthcare, emergency services, water, our kids. We're okay with 3 or 4 more months. We're okay with that. I'm not okay. Because when I came onto this, it was because we were going, this is the last stop for accountability. This is the last stop for transparency. So this motion here, that's not just about that's bad governance. And it's also a threat to democracy. Because democracy is what happened the last time that we were in this room. Democracy was how we negotiated who was going to come before us. Quick 1-hour update. And to your point, Susie, they could have all come in here and said, all 19 recommendations. We were at 0, now we're at 100. Now we're at 75. Perfect. Great. But it sends a signal to every other entity that receives an audit and receives recommendations that this committee is actually serious about holding them accountable. And what this is, exactly the opposite. This is saying we don't care. We don't care. We're just going to punt it back. So I'm going to beg you guys, whatever conscience, whatever you guys can truly, look at the list. Oversight of contracted services for children and youth in care, the protection of drinking water, management of Forest Service roads, management of the Conservation Lands Program, oversight of dam safety in BC, ensuring long-distance ground transportation in northern BC, the BC Oil and Gas Commission management, and access to emergency health services. Ask yourself, you're okay with that on your head? Because I'll go on record, I am not. I am not.
Rona?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just have quite a few comments, I think. At the last meeting, I had asked the Auditor General about a couple of things. One of them was around the timing. And the fact of the matter is that these reports were prepared based on information that came forward from ministries a year before we actually were making decisions on this. And a lot can happen in a year. That was number one. Number two was, I questioned the completed, not completed, the very polarized snapshots that we got about the different reports. And in those cases, I heard the comments that, this is a fail and they have to be accountable, but I'd like to add the nuance that is there in this report under the results of our review. It's worth noting that just because an entity has indicated that a recommendation is not complete does not mean that they haven't done any work on the recommendation. In most cases, entities reported that work is underway, but more work is needed for the recommendation to complete. Some recommendations are more complex than others, such as those that require extensive consultation or broad system changes and may require more time. Now, all of those things create, to me, a lot of nuance. And to hear members saying they are failing, I don't think is a fair portrayal. I don't say, looking at the topics, I agree that every single topic that has been investigated is an important topic to the people of British Columbia. but the recommendations aren't as sweeping as is being portrayed once again here. They have some very specific recommendations based on very, I will say, in-depth work at the time that they were completed in 2019, 2020, and 2021. And that's why the annual reports are so important, to see how things are progressing. Now, the Auditor General has told us that the letters had gone out to the entities, or the ministries, to provide their updates in November, just as we were talking about this. Now we're saying that they need to come and be accountable to us while they're busy being accountable to the Auditor General. And as we came into this meeting, I'm thinking, and they're also right in the middle of preparing their budgets. We changed the finance government's public consultation simply because we said it was too late to go in September because they're busy working on their budgets in the fall and the early new year. So if we want to have public consultation, we should start in June. So we go around the province in June. So, you know, taking this in isolation of all that goes on in government just does not make sense to me. And I see an opportunity to have the reports, as has been suggested by the Auditor General, that they're going to be able to condense the time to make them a little more timely. And then I would feel more comfortable, instead of waiting a year after the information in the reports has come to us, to actually have ministries have that conversation with us. And I don't think that I'm trying to rationalize not looking at things. I think that what we do as a committee is important. I think what the Auditor General does is really important. And I have to say I resent the allegation that there's been some interference by the Premier's office, because that's simply not the case. I think I've been able to independently think about this and recognize that it's not just that it's a bit of a trip up of timing. It isn't efficient use of anybody's time. It isn't going to give us anything other than an opportunity to politicize our job here. And up until this point, I hadn't seen that politicization. But when you start talking about which is the one that's seems to be so egregious around MCFD, it's oversight of contracted services for children and youth in care, from a report that happened in 2019, based on 2018 thing. What am I looking at? It is. The systems are changing, and it takes time to change things. And I want them to be working on those things, and I want them to be able to give us the most up-to-date information that they can, which they will have once they have responded to the Auditor General. So I don't think we are trying to thwart democracy here. I think we are trying to serve democracy at this point. And so I'm quite in favor of saying, let's wait till we have the Auditor's General report in a more timely fashion to be able to have the ministries respond with up-to-date information that they will have then already prepared.
Jackie.
Well, I have to say that at the last meeting, I was quite enthusiastic about the report from the Auditor General and the overview of what our role is as a committee, and the encouragement that we received to go deeper into the work. And I think that the recommendation that came out of that was the motion that was passed at the last meeting. I'm appalled to sit here and listen to someone talk about it being okay that a report on MCFD that was done in 2019, and they have done 0 on the recommendations. We have had report after report on issues in MCFD from the representative, from personal stories, from parents, and we're going to say it's okay to continue on to have no results from a very in-depth report from the Auditor General. I believe our role as elected people is to hold the government and the ministries to account. And we don't do it by going through another agency. We do it by calling them before us and getting an understanding of what is going on, what they need in order to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Because it doesn't matter whether it is MCFD or protection of drinking waters or forest service roads or dam management. We have a report in front of us that tells us that they have not completed the recommendations. And I would suggest to you, we are behind the times. My preference would to be meet right after Christmas and get this going and let people know that this committee is active. They are caring about what the recommendations are. We are interested in knowing where you're at and what we can do to assist. And we also then validate the work that has been done by the Auditor General's office. And I am extremely disappointed to see this motion in front of us. And the thought that 3 more months or 6 more months, you know what? If the workload's too heavy, then we need to address that for these ministries. They've had the reports, many of them since 2019. If the workload's too heavy, come to us and tell us. And then we'll do what we need to do as politicians in order to address that. But they have an obligation to report to us. And shame on us if we don't ask them to.
Susie.
I think what I had to say was well articulated by my colleague. Thank you.
Jennifer.
I appreciate your comments, Ron Arway, because you much more succinctly conveyed what I was attempting to convey. I think when you talk about if they don't have the resources and whatnot, it's not that the when you say they don't have the resources, it's actually the AG didn't have the resources because the AG was so late on these reports. Hence, I mean, this is what you're saying. I'm not saying this is true, Monsieur Auditor General, but this is what you're saying. Because had the Auditor General brought us this work even a year ago, 6 months ago, then I don't see, I would totally support us bringing the entities that we collectively agreed on should come forward. But when you say the report he's providing us is so outdated and you say they have not done anything, well, that can or cannot be true. So you're accusing them of not doing anything when it's the Auditor General that's presented us a report that's so late. So that could or could not be true. If these entities are going to report to him in the very near future, why would we make them come forth so much sooner? Why would we not wait till we see the Auditor General's reports after getting the follow-up and then convene and discuss what ministries or government entities need to come forward to us? This is not thwarting democracy. This is practicality. And the fact that you have portrayed us as some sort of violators of democracy is really unfair and is very political, the thing that you're accusing us of doing. So, Mr. Chair, I would like to call the motion.
No, I was still.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the, Renee?
Thanks. The arguments that have been presented here tonight don't make any sense. You don't choose to not do something because the time has passed. You choose to do it with urgency because the time has passed. We have an opportunity to hold these entities to account. And this motion is choosing to not hold them to account. And I will go on record by saying that if all of these recommendations are now in place, great. It will be a joyous 1 hour in January that we get to celebrate. If they are not, is the far greater risk. And just the one that we've been focused on, but the oversight of contracted services for children and youth in care, we have heard of 2 other audits that have failed in that house. We have heard of abuse. We have heard of deaths. I think that would be one that we would want to bring here and find out if it's 0%, 25%, 50%, where are they on those recommendations? Because right now, the report that we have in front of us is 0%. 0% successful implementation of a single recommendation. And this committee has a motion in front of them that says we want to punt this down the field. If we were a board, we would be fired. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
So I'm just going to add a short.
Madam Chair, could I get a ruling on? Or, sorry, Madam Clerk, could I get a ruling on the fact that I called the motion and we continue to have discussion?
So I recognize that the government members would like to get this over with. You're going to win the vote. I'm just putting on the record a couple brief comments. And frankly, you keep jumping in and talking over everybody. And so, given what we've witnessed with the motions and the changes of procedures in these chambers over the last 5 days, I don't think it's really that unreasonable that we maybe have a bit of a say on a motion that is essentially saying this committee no longer has work to do. Frankly, everything the government members have said on this is the exact opposite of what this motion does. As you've heard, to make it very clear for the public, because this is an open meeting, this is not in camera, the motion that's been presented by the government members, instead of having an entity come here, in this case MCFD, to speak to 0 of 4 recommendations, not one of the 4 recommendations implemented as it relates to Indigenous youth in care, if memory serves, to me, is incredible. If the MCFD wants to come here and defend their track record and say they've actually implemented everything, that's great. But the whole purpose of this committee, the whole existence of this committee, is to actually ask those entities those types of questions. The people that are presupposing what work has or has not been done is actually the government members that have brought this motion forward by all of their statements. And so I'll leave it at that. I understand the government's going to win their vote yet again on this. We get that's how this place works. But frankly, when you layer this motion with everything else in the closure and every other piece that we've had today, I guess if we talk for a few more minutes, we might get the House Leader from the government coming in with a closure bill on this committee meeting too. But it's incredible to me, the arrogance coming out of government right now about the lack of oversight that they want to see in relation to things going on within government. The Auditor General does great work. The Auditor General presented reports to us, as they do every year. And as it said on the agenda, it was our job to read his report ahead of time, our job to decide what, if any, entities we wanted to call back for further review. And that's why it had deliberations on the agenda. And any committee member that didn't read ahead of time or reach out to myself or the clerk's office or the vice chair of this committee to find out what deliberations meant in the context of the Auditor General report, that's actually their responsibility as a committee member, to do the work ahead of time before we get to this committee room. To have actually read the reports that are in that Auditor General report. Or what's the point? Just as we should have read the Auditor General's service plan ahead of today. Or what is the point? So with that, the motion has been asked to be called. All those in favor? And opposed? How do we have our vote recorded?
I want to be recorded. Division.
Division. Is there any other steps needed to be taken? Okay, division has been called. Perhaps you can explain the process for divisions and committees, please.
So, thank you, Chair. So divisions are taken in committee in the same manner as in the House. So the Chair will restate the question and ask all those voting aye to raise their hand, and then those voting nay to raise their hand. Then I'll ask any members virtually to indicate their vote. Following that, the Chair will then ask me to advise the results of the vote, following which the Chair will declare the motion passed or defeated. And so
Okay.
that's pretty much it.
Thank you. So we have a motion signed by Jennifer Rice, MLA. All those in favor? And, oh. Do you want me to reread the whole motion? Okay, sorry. So I'll reread the motion, that the order of the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts of November 6, 2023, with respect to requesting audited organizations appear before the committee to provide an update on the status of implementing audit report recommendations, be discharged in recognition of the fact that the committee made its decision based on information dated November 30th, 2022, as contained in the Office of the Auditor General's annual follow-up report, status of performance audit recommendations 2019 to 2021. Just one quick procedural note. We might have to amend this. I'm not sure, so I just want to make sure it's accurate. When I went back and looked for the report, follow-up report, status of performance audit recommendations 2019-2021, that was presented to us on November 6th. It looked to be dated for July of 2023. I couldn't find a November 30th, 2022 reference, so I'm just wondering if we could get clarification from the person who made the motion of the dates, so we can find the document that's being referenced.
Jennifer, do you?
Within the report, the Auditor General's report that was presented in July 2023, the status of the recommendations that's prepared and within it by the ministries and the audit organizations, there's notations that the information is accurate as of November 30th, 2022.
That's fine. I just want, I truly, I mean, I know it's going to vote. I just wanted to make sure it was worded accurately. So all those in favor? And Mr. Utley on TV, you saw? Oh, right, we'll do it separate? Okay. Doug, we'll get to you just 1 second, kind of like a regular house vote. All those opposed, if you could raise your hand. Okay, and Doug?
I vote aye. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Those voting aye, Rice, Begg, Chant, Leonard, Routley, 5. Those voting nay, Taggart, Merrifield, 2.
And me. I can't vote? Oh, jeez, I find out so many things all the time. Okay, thank you. So the motion is carried. I don't believe there's any other business. So motion to adjourn.